Quest, right? It does similar things, but without the restrictions of having to play spells in certain orders. But because of there's just like this extra effect on the removal, but then also the fact that you don't need to then activate that quest, you're a little bit more free with how you play. I think there is some more edge for the mage here than it would be if it was quest mage. I'm not necessarily saying mage is favored. It's just that I think this has a slightly better chance because you can be more flexible in how you play the game.
Yeah, you don't have to kill everything. You just have to kill enough things to stay alive. Quite often that involves a fire sale and killing everything. But you don't have to wipe board after board. You just have to pick out enough early damage to try and stay alive, and then obviously manage your card draw and your timing. You quite often know when you're going to die. You can very easily estimate hunter damage, so quite often you just know you have to start drawing cards and hope it works out if things are going badly. But things aren't going badly so far with that Incanter's Flow in that opener.
Yeah, Fury does have the Incanter's Flow, but I like XiaoT's mulligan here because what he's effectively done is set up a double one-drop opening at worst with Demon Companion and Adorable Infestation. Then he has Biscuit to go on top of that. Okay, the aim shot's a bit meh, but other than that, he's guaranteed a strong opening, and you play 2 minions against Mage. It's unlikely they can answer them both, generally speaking. First Flame is a pretty good answer, to be fair. But generally speaking, you're like, this is as aggressive as you can possibly be. Then if you can land the Biscuit on one of these minions, already you stacking that damage. So I do like this keep here from XiaoT. Unfortunately for him, though, we are going to see this first flame, second flame, I imagine, from Huntrace. From Furyhunter.
What year are you living in, Raven?
Look, I'm getting confused because XiaoT is playing Hunter against Furyhunter, and I'm just looking at too many different things. I'm an idiot. I'm sorry. Furyhunter, of course.
Absolutely fine, Raven. All right, let's have a look at this opener. Furyhunter, I believe, considered the mulligan very, very strongly. I don't know if he was considering keeping that Ignite or not, but he did not do that in the end, and now has the reward of this first flame as an option to tidy up this early board.
Yeah, and I don't like him being what I would call greedy with first flame and like keeping it and saying like pinging the 1-1, because here you want to look, he's almost certainly planning on Incanter's Flow on 3, which means these minions would just live for another 2 turns likely, and because you know there's that threat of the Biscuit on turn 2, I do like Furyhunter just going for it there and saying, right, I'm going to have this Incanter's Flow as safe as possible. And you even saw the nod there, right? Furyhunter was thinking, right, well, if there's Biscuit, I need to kill these minions. If there's not, I know I'm facing down certainly at least a 1-1 from XiaoT if he wants. And if it's a 1-1, then it's another 1-drop as well, which means it's a relatively weak board to be able to land that Incanter's Flow. So good decisions there. Nothing too deep, of course, but just Furyhunter not taking any chances with these openings.
Yep, absolutely. That is the way. Like, just don't take damage from the early things and then work out how much damage the Hunter can do to you later. Again, probably going to set up the Ice Barrier now to buy another turn, but this is going to be awkward because he really wants to draw some cards, and the Ruined Orb might make this decision so much easier for him. Now he can take some damage off the board and potentially intellect into some more cards and save the Ice Barrier for another turn.
Yeah, I think this might be a fire sale here. Mana Biscuit again. Mana Biscuit's in the deck. It's a good card, but fire sale is currently what Furyhunter does not have, which is removal, right? So I do like this going for barrier. Then he has options between flurry and fire sale going forward, based on obviously what XiaoT does in response. And XiaoT does go Biscuit number 2. Going to push an absolute ton of damage. And this is why I love the deck. There's just a 5/7 on the board that gets to attack for Hunter on turn 4. Like, the Biscuit is such a sick card, honestly.
Yeah, and it's not a huge buff. It just takes things out of key number range, right? Which means it survives. It's not so much the 5 attack, it's that 7 health. It's just really awkward to remove. But Flurry, followed by Brain Fleas, will keep it under control for the foreseeable future. Allow Furyhunter just to... I'm going to call him Huntrace now as well. You've done...
See, yep. I was waiting for that. I was like, geez, Lorinda, get it right. But yeah, look, it's just such a nutty game because both players are getting what they need, right? XiaoT had the strong opening with the biscuit. Furyhunter had the first flame to answer that, and Incanter's Flow on curve. He then could freeze these bigger minions from XiaoT, but then XiaoT just gets Barak on curve and now has double aim shot, quick shot in his hand to basically kill Furyhunter as long as he has enough time to do so.
Yep, and this is where Furyhunter had to make a decision. He's made it quickly because he blows his deck inside out. He had to decide, if I take all the damage that the Hunter's going to throw at me next turn, I kind of have to win the turn after. I might have one more turn after that. But if I don't draw cards, I probably just never win. It's just delaying the inevitable. So choosing to go for a turn which will allow him to set up Mozaki, not next turn, probably the turn after that. But this is what he will be planning. He'll be picking which turn he's going to try and win the game.
Yeah, so here now, XiaoT, pretty bad draw with the Rhino, has tracking, aim shot, hero power push, so that's pushing 10 with the tracking there to fish for something. But then the turn after, there's aim shot, quick shot, hero power. Again, for what? That's another 10, basically. So he'd still need just a little bit more, although it would be enough if the Barrett gets to attack, or something gets to hit for 3 or more next turn. I believe that is technically lethal. If he can get the attacks through. So I don't see anything too crazy here for XiaoT. Tons of damage spells, just get them done.
Yeah, and Furyhunter is going to struggle here to get the cards he requires, the number of cards he requires to get anything done here. But can he survive one more turn with removal? He's going to have a look, see what he can find.
Needs to kill these minions or he's donezo. Okay.
He's got the Hot Streak into Fire Sale available, but that doesn't actually kill things. If he gets some more spell damage, though...
He has Hot Streak, Fire Sale, and the Ignite as well.
And now he's got the Blood Mage.
Which helps. Yeah, so... Yeah, Blood Mage, Hot Streak, Fire Sale, Ignite clears,
yep,
right?
That clears. It doesn't sound particularly fun as a clear, but... Not being dead in this deck is very often an incredibly good place to be. That's what he's going to go with. He does have the Mana Biscuit in hand, the 0-cost one in particular. So there is an option to just win the game next turn, which if available, I'm sure he will take.
But there's 10 damage here for XiaoT if he wants it. So he cannot just deal 13. So at this point now, both players are on one of them is going to win next turn territory, right? If Furyhunter gets put down to 3, which XiaoT doesn't necessarily have to put Furyhunter down to 3. He could end up doing something a little bit different here and just retaining, for example, the aim shot hero power or retaining his quick shots if he wants to do something else. I would guess, though, that it would just be aim shot, quick shot, hero power. I think the weapon's a bit too mana heavy, and also if he draws a 1 mana spell, if a secret is generated somehow and it's counter spell, he has the mana to actually proc the counter spell and still be okay to proc the quick shot.
Looking for a cram session or similar here, and that's not available. He's going to have to now cycle Fire Sale after getting all his mana sorted out. Otherwise he just won't be able to do anything. Obviously, actually going to go for the multicaster? Sure.
He needs more, right? That's the problem.
Yeah.
I don't think 1 Fire Sale, unless it's exactly Cram Session, would get him anywhere. So he needs Cram Session. Ignite, Barrier, Biscuit.
None of the above.
He has Barrier. He's going to hope that there's just not a spell left, but we can see, of course, there is. And that looks like game number 1 is going to be going to XiaoT.
Notice that he killed his own minion there to stop Rhino lethals. Like every...
Yep.
I like to point out the Furyhunter things, the little things that he sometimes does.
Yeah, Rhino hero power would have been game as well, right? Through the
yeah. That wasn't a mistake. That was actually just technically correct. He knows he's probably dead here because Hunter has always accumulated direct damage here. And XiaoT taking the first game goes to a 1-0 lead.
You saw how much of a knife's edge that game was on. XiaoT looked like he was up like ahead for a lot of that game, right? And obviously the barrack was a big deal. Getting aim shot, quick shot was really huge. One of the benefits, actually, I talk a lot about playing Ram in the deck, but one of the benefits of not playing that is you will get the aim shot, whereas sometimes that happens and you get the charging Ram, which is obviously not great in that scenario. But again, if Furyhunter got hold of a cram session on that Mazaki turn, that could well have been lethal, right? Potentially,
yes.
With all that card draw. So it could well have gone the other way, and that's often how I see this mage playing out. It either demolishes them in one turn or dies just like that. So we'll see how we go on to game number 2, but a big game 1 win there, getting Hunter out the way there for XiaoT.
Yep, XiaoT winning the battle of the biscuits, Hunter versus Mage there. But both biscuits, the doggy one and the Mana biscuit, the Mage biscuit, getting the work done. Quest Warrior, the assault, the damage is just going to keep on coming. This is one of the decks that just puts out the most damage output in all of Hearthstone. I want to say kind of ever. It's just relentless. And if you stop putting out the damage, then you just finish the quest and put out more damage. It's absolutely nutty, I find.
Yep, this is the list I've been playing a lot over the past few days on ladder. I like it a lot. I like although it's not the control list, I like the Barov in there, just as that answer to just wipe the board away, or remove a big taunt minion, or it's just something threatening from your opponent. But everything else is so clean, and I do think the neophytes are very worthwhile in this list. There's a lot of Pirate Warrior decks, especially on ladder, that don't necessarily play neophyte, but I do like it. I feel personally that it makes an impact in enough matchups to get the slot. Sometimes a little bit annoying that it's not a pirate to proc the quest, but the effect it has is well worth it.
Yeah, I think this might be the difference between tournament and ladder. I think on ladder, you just make your deck do its thing the best it can, unless it's got an absolute horrendous weakness, and you slowly climb using your deck doing its thing. But in tournaments, you're aware of your lineup weaknesses, which allows you to put in a tech card here and there. And if he feels that he'd just like a little bit extra against one or two of the decks to slow them down, and against someone like Furyhunter, who's just playing combo deck after combo deck, yes, absolutely. If that's your lineup weakness, put in the neophytes and see how you get on. And talking of those combo decks, here is Furyhunter on the Garrote Rogue, a deck that people thought was going to go away.
Yeah, I think maybe the rumours of its nerf effect is over-exaggerated to an extent. We do see the Blackwater Cutlass in there, which is just a tradable weapon, which is nice to see and still gets to push some damage. But I do think the key is, although yes, the Garrote Rogue damage has been reduced down, it still does a lot with the combo, and it's not that often, at least in games I've casted, that Garrote Rogue has done 0 damage to their opponent's face and then combo, right? A lot of it does revolve around them doing some sort of a chip damage in the early to mid game, and then the combo does the rest of the job. So again, and the win rates back that up, right? Like we've seen Garrote Rogue have a fantastic win rate across the board here in this Masters Tour.
I think XiaoT should give people lessons on how to pose for the camera. One of the best camera shots we've seen of all of the players. All right, Furyhunter with Octobot and Ping available, and Neophyte also available if he wants it, although probably don't want that. And you've got enough Ping, throws the Ping away as well. But Octobot, yes, please. It challenges all those early pirates. There's a 4-3 in the deck, but everything else is smaller, so you might just play it out there, depending on what happens on the turn number 1.
It's a very strange Octobot hand, though, isn't it? Because he's reducing card draw, in which you'd normally want to draw those minions and then reduce them down. So this is even though there's an Octo there, for me, it's a relatively slow opening for Furyhunter, whereas XiaoT, as is often the case with this type of warrior, you almost never have a bad mulligan. You could probably close your eyes, mulligan all the cards you're offered, apart from the quest, obviously, and end up with a pretty solid curve, because that's just how the deck's built, especially this one that doesn't include the Bulwark, doesn't have Brawl, it doesn't have Rancor. It is just minions.
Yeah, I haven't checked the win rates, but Harbour Scamp is absolutely amazing. I don't think you lose very often at all when you get that in your opener, but that's usually to smooth things out a bit. He's not even going to have to worry about that. Early use of the coin, because he has such a good curve, means that he can really get into this fight early. Furyhunter did pick up that field contact, which makes this Octobot look a lot less sad than it looked a moment ago when you're describing the opening hand.
I will say, though, the pre-trade that we saw pretty common in the sort of last meta of just, well, if someone plays an Octobot like this, just hit it because it's the least amount of minions or cards it's going to reduce, would be good here because it would mean that obviously these Shrouds aren't playable before the Octo procs. So I would like the pre-trade there, and I don't think right now there's any major rush for like XiaoT to be like, oh, I've got to push damage, right? He just has the curve. He's probably going to retain the board very quickly. So I have to see how this one goes out, but Furyhunter does have to use the 2-mana concealment. It does have Prize Plunderer as well, which will kill off this 2-1, or you can trade it into the 2-3 to kill it off if he wants.
Yeah, the Plunder I think he will save for... There's bigger things to come, right? It's one of those where you've got limited removal, so you kind of have to save it for those bigger things that you know are around the corner. Again, especially with how XiaoT has chosen to play his curve. He knows that one of those big 3 drops is on the way. So Prize Plunderer, easy for you to say, is going to be a big deal here.
It's also just super good in this matchup with Shadow Step as well, right? If you can step those Plunderers, there just will be targets for you to kill.
He's also, Furyhunter that is getting to the point where he might actually be able to go minions on the board like quite wide. If you can have one of those turns, maybe Brain Freeze something, drop a field contact maybe the turn after with 2 or 3 minions. He can go the old-fashioned way, which is play Rogue like a Rogue deck and not like a combo deck, and just occupy the board and get your tempo while removing theirs.
The problem with that plan is XiaoT set this up very nicely where next turn he has 2 2-mana pirates, which is going to proc the double cannon shot from the quest. So if Furyhunter goes wide now, XiaoT has a pretty solid chance to just kill 2 minions for free, basically.
Yep. Furyhunter's so patient here. Stealth doesn't help against being hit with cannons, unfortunately. Contrary to what I think Raven was saying yesterday.
Was I?
You were joking, yes. Something.
Oh, okay. I will say, though, this is kind of nice from Furyhunter because of what I mentioned about the 2 pirates for the cannons. This means that there's the lowest amount of threats to get killed, which sounds a little bit weird, but if this Neophyte gets killed, that's unfortunate. But now Furyhunter can be way more confident about going wide because he knows that the... He might have even preferred Neophyte to die there, honestly, but he knows he can go wide because the next pirate proc is just Rakara, which is a 5-drop. So you know you've got a whole extra turn before that can happen. So I imagine now, especially with that Shadow Step pickup, this Plunderer is going to get some work done.
Yep, and he is going to manage to get very wide himself. Second Shadow Step! Drawing cards as he goes.
Give me that.
No longer a combo deck, Raven. This is just going to have a load of stuff on the board.
Yeah, and this is Furyhunter just being rewarded for his patience, right? Setting up, dodging, not committing into the cannon turn, which is a huge deal, of course. And now he's just ahead. And like I said, the problem with the next turn from XiaoT is, yes, he is likely with the next draw, or reasonably likely, to get the Rakara ready for next turn. But that just means he's just playing 2 kind of dumb pirates into this board. And, well, okay, he actually can't now because he drew Barov. But there's like just 2 dumb pirates to play. And then you have to spend 5 mana playing a 7/7 that actually on that turn does nothing. So these next couple of turns are relatively slow here.
Yeah, and he needs to have his foot on the gas because you look at this army of garbage on Furyhunter's side. That's 10 damage represented. It's not as garbage as you first look. It's just, oh, look at all these fiddly things. It's just the rogue way. Hit them, just tickle them to death slowly, but it's coming pretty quick now.
He could actually clean this up, right? He can bop the shield with the weapon and then just go Barov, Shiver, Barov. And then that'll just clear away the board. It's definitely not a nice looking turn, but it'll do. And then next turn he does have the double 3-drop pirates to be able to get the Rakara in hand for turn 7. There are other things he could do. He could bop the shield and then just like shiver and play like a Ratchet or something here, but I think just letting Furyhunter retain the board is probably not worth it.
Yep, he's got to clear it all up, but Furyhunter, this is XiaoT's issue here, he's still got to do 18 damage. Rakara's going to be too slow whatever happens here, because first of all he's got to get it, then he's got to play it, then it's got to go off. And Furyhunter is down to 10 cards left in the deck, which is where every rogue wants to be. And yeah, he'll thin that deck out some more now with his secret passage.
Another secret passage as well. So what you thinking? Octo throw and then secret
That's what
passage?
I would do. He's just
Fury's going to keep it. Okay. That's one thing. I know some people dislike Garrett Rogue, some people love it, but one thing I will say is the decision making is always interesting, right? Because I always feel like every play you watch makes these kinds of decisions just slightly differently.
No, absolutely, and it depends on the exact situation at the time. Plus, players' previous experience with playing the deck and how they think the best way to thin it out is. Furyhunter seems to want to leave the Octo in his deck to make sure that he can reduce the Garots and stuff that are already in his hand guaranteed, because things can trade into Octo at this point and just kill it in one shot. So he wants to have control over the proccing of the Octo himself.
How much of a problem do you think here is that XiaoT is actually still healthy on 30, right? Although he lost the board and it feels like he's been behind for a while, he's actually still full health and can still armor up throughout the rest of the game as well. Is that going to be a big deal for Furyhunter to actually, as he's progressing through to his own combo, to actually get through here?
Let's have a look. He's got a Guild Trader and an Orc Merchant in hand. He's got a Shadow Step in hand. So that's +4 spell damage. The 4 little bits of the Garots is 16. The 2 primary Garots would be, another 10, 26. So irritating, but not unsurmountable. Just
not clean cut, is it, right? Like, he just doesn't have the easy option, which is, I guess, exactly what the nerf was there for, right? It wasn't to particularly delete the deck, but just to make it not quite as straightforward, saying, oh, I can do 50 damage this turn, who cares?
Yeah, it's going back to the times when the deck was first made and nobody could play it, where you'd play them on ladder and they'd go off and you wouldn't concede because, you know what, this person's just going to mess up. That solved the damage issue, Raven. There's a Mask of Cthulhu picked up there. That's chunky points of damage.
And also really nice through those turns that Rakara does get the Bulwark of Azanoth, right? That's like the usual Bulwark counter anyway. So if that does get generated, Furyhunter has a way to not only punch through it, but also push the extra damage through that as well.
For people who say, how do you control nerves when you play tournaments? I get nervous when I play tournaments. Furyhunter gets nervous when he plays tournaments too, and he's won everything. So don't worry about it. Just accept the nerves and enjoy the game.
Yeah, this is not... excuse me, sorry. This is not great for XiaoT here because he has to play Rakara, but with nothing to answer, it does mean that Furyhunter just gets to sit with a field contact on board, so it's a big ask. But you can see now Furyhunter working out the damage, working out the exact sequencing. Of course, he has to consider now that, again, the Neophyte, a card that not everyone is playing in Pirate Warrior, is coming in a little bit clutch here because although with the Shadow Step used up last turn, there's only a chance at 1 Octo reduction, and the Octo reduction would only bring these Garots down to their natural mana cost.
Yep, he's got to tidy up this. He shouldn't die to the Juggernaut next turn, even if you count the fatigue that's coming in, but Furyhunter needs to maximise the damage here. Just wants to make sure that next turn is the one for him. And yeah, he's going to go for the Mask and get as much damage in as possible. This is the right way to do it because he's got recurring damage on the board by preserving his minions.
No Bulwark, no Bulwark, no Bulwark. Okay, is that a Smite? Is that Mr. Smite? So that's what, 10, 12? That's 13 with the 2 damage from the deck, 14 with the 2 damage from the deckhand, and that's just a swift GG. Furyhunter cannot believe it. But this happens to be every single day on ladder.
Well, it shouldn't.
Insane.
And Furyhunter from the Danish pirate boys back in the day should have control of those pirates, but they have betrayed him in that game.
Mutiny.
Mutiny on the XiaoT. And it's 2-0 to XiaoT, an absolutely monstrous pickup there to finish that game off. Furyhunter was guaranteed to win next turn if nothing crazy happened.
Yeah, and we all know about Smite. We all know how the interactions can work with Juggernaut. Because, for example, if that was a 1-attack or 2-attack pirate, then that is not lethal. Then at that point, I think he's one off. So definitely a tough one for Furyhunter to deal with there. I think he actually played very, very well. But I do think like the Neophyte in there was absolutely huge from XiaoT as well.
Yes.
This was the flashy finish, of course, but that Neophyte was massive because I think if the Neophyte wasn't played, if that was any other minion, I think Furyhunter wins that turn, right?
Yeah, I don't think even Gorehowl was necessarily enough there, so he did get pretty harshly treated there, but again, we've played enough Hearthstone to know that is a thing that can happen to you, but Furyhunter had to play the percentages, and the percentages were massively on his side. So talking of the percentages, he is now going to be up against this Quest Warlock. It's the weaker link in XiaoT's lineup, especially against Furyhunter, so it's not all over yet. And we saw Furyhunter come from 2-0 behind multiple times in the last Masters Tour, so he's been here before.
It does mean now that XiaoT, of course, is going to be on that Quest Warlock, which I agree with you, actually. I think this has been one of the weaker showings. I think it's one of the stronger, like, high-tier decks. I just think the way the meta's kind of been created for this tournament, that this Quest Warlock has, at least when I've been watching it, has not felt super strong. It feels like right now it is very heavily reliant on just getting or sticking an Anetheron or Flesh Giants early in the game and almost just letting them carry the game. I think the rest of the deck, yeah, there's the sustain there. Yes, there's Tamsin, which I honestly can't remember the last time that the quest reward of Tamsin did anything for this deck that I've seen, at least,
Agree.
I think a lot of it really is just Anetheron or Flesh Giant and Battle Masters. Sometimes you can throw Baron Scavenger into that pool if the card draw has been extremely fast, but I do feel like this deck, although strong, is just maybe not strong enough to count your whole series on.
Yeah, absolutely, but again, with 3 chances at it, it's good enough, isn't it? You would think to get through, but I just never count Furyhunter out after last time, or after many of the other times I've seen him play in the past.
And look at the lineups, right? Furyhunter has Garrote Rogue against Quest Warlock, potentially. He has the Mozaki Mage against Quest Warlock. Again, another deck that, although I've not exactly put my 200 games of Mozaki Mage in yet, I do feel like it's got to be pretty decent. And then I believe his last deck is, it's his OTK Demon Hunter, which again does have a reasonable game. So even though it looks like XiaoT is going to just smoothly sail through this series, these are 3 decks from Fury that can beat up this Warlock.
Absolutely, and as he ticks them off one by one, if he does manage to tick them off, where was it we were last tournament? Just one game at a time. None of the previous games matter. You're just going to play this one game. I think TJ may have mentioned that just once or twice last tournament.
Yeah, the only downside here for Fury, and obviously I can't speak for him, I can only speak for myself, is if I was in his spot, that was a tilter to lose, right? That last game. So that's the only like negative here of the way this is shaken out so far, is you're on like match point here basically every single game, and the one that took you to that was just a big tilter of a game. So hopefully for Fury, I know he's a calm guy and he knows how to get this done, but if there's ever a problem, right, it's going to be off the back of something like that happening, where it's a smite off the top, getting pretty much just the exact damage needed for lethal. So tough one there to take that second loss, but Fury's definitely got it in him. But also, XiaoT, we're acting like XiaoT, he's playing Warlock, he might struggle. Like, he's XiaoT, right? He can get anything done, as we've seen and as we'll continue to see in the future, no doubt. So let's dive in. It's going to be back to Garrote Rogue for Furyhunter. XiaoT, of course, on that Quest Warlock.
And he is still irritated as Furyhunter. Don't let anybody doubt that if you win a Masters Tour, you want to win another one. You don't get many chances to go back to back. So, yeah, winning the next one, you don't get many chances in your life at doing it. Obviously, Blythe did manage that, and he's come close to winning a third as well. But Furyhunter, sure, as soon as this starts, he will put it out of his head. But he's quite clearly and quite understandably very annoyed about what just happened. This might be his chance. XiaoT has got a stinker of an opener.
Yeah,
Fury's got the goods.
Not too great. I guess the only weird benefit for XiaoT is because the opener's not great. maybe it makes his Soul Rend good. Furyhunter starts playing tempo, right? Like the Soul Rend gets something done and maybe digs him towards those 10 or less. Does pick up the Neophyte on the top there, so it's not looking bad. But the more XiaoT's drawing, the more I'm liking the look of that Soul Rend.
Yeah, one of the advantages of, or one of the reasons you play Handlock through the ages, ever since the dawn of Hearthstone time, is just that, yeah, you might have a bad opening 3 cards, but in 2 turns' time you've got 7 cards, and none of that really matters so much unless you're incredibly unlucky. However, now he's got to that 7 cards, he still doesn't have a hand that is particularly meaningful. Second Soul Rend, obviously nice, but he's not going to be putting on the pressure very early, and we're going to get to that mid-game where Giants become sort of all the rage for the Warlock players.
Hold on. I'm getting inspiration.
Now again, something that is really difficult to learn, honestly, with this deck is when to proc Octo. If it's not a general, say it's an aggro matchup, you play Octo on turn 2, fine. But if it's not that, it can be difficult to work out exactly when is the time. For example, I think there would be many players who would have gone for the Octo turn there and then, but Fury being max greed, drawing as many cards out of the deck, and then he's, I imagine, likely to go for the Octo next turn instead.
And you're seeing the difference here between this game and the previous one where he was under pressure and had to just throw the Octo out there, even though his hand, as you described, he really wanted to draw the cards before proccing the Octo. This time, there's no pressure on the board, and he can get himself a full hand of stuff before reducing it all for maximum help. And the stuff he has got to reduce is pretty prime candidates for what you want as well. He's going to be in a great spot.
XiaoT just working out whether he wants to either throw away this, it's called Flinger, isn't it? Oh, sorry, Slinger.
Slinger.
Close enough. The Shadowblade Slinger or the Cult Neophyte, but again, I do like him keeping hold of it. I believe as well this locks him into an active Anetheron if he draws it off the top next turn, but also you just know that this isn't the time for it. You saw how clutch that late game Cult Neophyte was for XiaoT, so why play it before anything's actually even happened, right? It's not like he needs to play a tempo 3-2 in this game.
You see where Fury's mind is at here, just getting the passage out now just for thinning out the deck even by 1 card this early. Quite an unusual play, you would say, but because he's got a full hand, he doesn't really need to do much from the secret passages to fill up his hand. He's just planning where he wants to be, filling up, considering using the Brain Freeze to get rid of it, but you do want those Brain Freezes later in some matchups for Giants. I think he's trying to work out, if I get rid of it, can I just race my opponent? Like, will XiaoT get a Giant in time? He's done nothing. What am I scared of?
Yeah, of course, Fury will know what cost a Giant would be at any given time, right? It's all obvious information. There's no hidden information about a Giant's mana cost, as long as you keep in track, of course. So he will know if he needs to worry at any given moment. And pick up for Drained Soul here. Could still go like Drained Soul, tap, still have a chance at a Netheron, and if not, can play the Slinger to open up hand space. Doesn't look too bad to me. Drained Soul, of course, nice because it will reduce the Giant down again by 1. I believe that's going to be 6 mana now.
Yeah, and now I think...
That null? Okay. I saw a high mana cost and wasn't sure if it was a Netheron or not.
Right, yeah, that would have been pretty terrifying, or at least helpful for XiaoT. I think we might see Fury do a half combo next turn just to rifle through the deck, given that he's got all these reduced cards and he has the other field contact already in hand. I think we might just see him thin out the deck and get into position ready to win the game for turn 6 or turn 7. Probably not turn 6, it's a little bit early, but maybe turn 7, which is still pretty rapid.
Yoinks, another Brain Freeze there from the Discover.
Probably.
Yeah, this is normally the case in Garrote Rogue, right? Your first field contact is to draw cards, the second field contact is to win the game. That's reasonably fair.
And of course he will have sort of residual things all over the board at the end of this turn, which will be irritating to XiaoT. He may have to take time to clear them up. We talk about Soul Rend, but that's 4 mana. That's his whole turn, give or take. Because he's not scared of... Furyhunter's not scared of 1 null. He's scared of 2 Giants or something like that. And he has 1 Brain Freeze already to combat that. In fact, he has both, so he's just going to get the stuff out there, draw the card, and set himself up into a nice spot for winning this game in a couple of turns' time. But we've been here before, Raven, last game, and that didn't end well for him.
8 cards still away from the 10 or less activation from XiaoT. He does need to start getting things done now. And also, other than the null, he doesn't really have a way to pop the shield and Soul Rend, right? So it's a little bit tricky, and even then, only 2 minions in the Soul Rend isn't really what he's going for, I imagine.
Yeah, the Lux...
I think it was. Yeah, it was.
Nice catch. I never see them come off the side, though. I know you and the other cast have cheated like that for years, but me being an old-fashioned, I just wait and see it come in the hand.
Yeah, to be fair, in 20 years, I might not be able to see the card too well either, so it's understandable.
All right. No, it's a fair point. But looking at Furyhunter's hand, one of the things that last turn allowed him to do was not use the Shadow Step on the field contact. Because of how his hand is already built, because he has the other field contact hanging around, this Shadow Step's going to get a lot of work done in other ways, which will be nice for him too.
More bones to
Gonna go null tap, I guess. Makes sense.
Yep. Got to work out when he wants to use this Neophyte. I think it might be very soon, probably next turn.
Maybe even it's ever this turn, because he's going to have to leave a field contact on the board, right?
Yeah.
This might have to just be the turn and say, you know what? I'm going to try and make this as difficult as possible because there's just a field contact there chilling. Oh, that helps though.
It does help, but now it's probably Furyhunter's turn to have to actually just take a turn off. He's under the Neophyte. That makes it difficult anyway. And he is facing down potential lethals in some worlds. Obviously, when the Neophyte's down, that helps, but Quest,
yeah, I mean,
you for 26 is a lot of damage.
Yeah, I think for Furyhunter, though, all he really has to do is brain freeze this Anetheron and he's safe, right? He just doesn't die anymore, so even got another brain freeze active for him as well. Even use the expensive one, right, and just hold for next turn.
That was my thought too, but he's just going. The more minions he can get out there, the more minions can actually fight on the board to get rid of any potential threats, because sometimes Warlock dumps a lot of stuff next turn. But with still 16 cards left, just not getting those reductions that he needs, XiaoT. Furyhunter down to 4 cards, right? But this is absolutely ridiculous. Right. Turn 6. It's turn 6. He's drawn his deck.
Yeah, it's pretty filthy, isn't it?
It really is. Love it.
Soul Rend, though, means that XiaoT can almost do the same. Kind of.
Kind of, yeah.
His deck count will be pretty low.
Furyhunter's last 2 cards, we're getting a look at them there. It's just the Shadow Step and the Plunderer. He's fine for next turn. He'll get through his deck. He'll be able to do full combo things.
No Raise Dead, which I think was the attempt, right, to not die here. If he could, say, go for Soul Rend, Raise Dead into Neophyte, although maybe even one Neophyte just wouldn't be enough. These things are reduced by so much. There is a limitation on mana for Furyhunter, right? So if, let's just pretend double Neophyte could come down, maybe you can talk, because, again, not many rogue games finish on 7 with a full empty deck combo, right? So the 7 mana restriction, although stuff's reduced, you do have to pay mana for some things normally. But Furyhunter might just get away with this one.
Yeah, XiaoT kind of going through the motions. He doesn't know which cards are reduced either, don't forget. So where he sat, maybe there's a chance that it's all the shrouds and everything that's reduced. And actually, Furyhunter's reduced cards aren't amazing, but he has got 1 reduced Garrot, 1 reduced field contact, and that's absolutely plenty.
It's quiet. Too quiet.
It always goes quiet at this point in the card. It's like, right, let's try and find the thing that could go wrong.
I got it all.
I don't think there are many things that can go wrong now that Furyhunter's in control, right? He doesn't mess these up. The health pool is very much low enough to make this straightforward, right? I think
Yeah.
A bigger worry of if Furyhunter was going to run into problems was on XiaoT's turn, right? If anything. But at this point, that adds up to 1 million.
Yeah, seeing it's more difficult now to win with Rogue, but we're also seeing it's still absolutely there and functional. Turn 7 kill Furyhunter. The situation we've seen him in so many times, trying to come from 2-0 down, gets the first step done. But I don't think XiaoT will be too worried. He's been here himself many times as well. So,
yeah,
gets the easy one out of the way.
It does begin though, right? Because again, I've not had 1 million games on this Mizaki mage, as it is relatively new, but you've just got to say, right, it looks decent, it's running a good amount of freeze, there's barrier to buy time, then there's insane burst damage, which Warlock can't really stop. And then the same, OTK Demon Hunter can do decent as well, so like I said, although it looked fantastic for XiaoT, XiaoT now has its hard matchups 3 times for me.
Yeah, I agree.
Furyhunter's now only got at least decent matchups at the absolute worst.
A couple of notes on the Mizaki mage. First of all, XiaoT is running that 1 altar of fire. If that hits a Mizaki, the game basically ends. It is doable depending where your ignites are at, but yeah, the game kind of ends. But also, there was an also. I promise you there was an also. Oh, he has to maintain his health total to some degree, because we talk about these insane damage turns from Mizaki mage. Sometimes you just go Mizaki, play some 0 drops, hit you for 11, and if the Warlock hasn't been paying attention, that 11 could kill them. So
right.
they're not at liberty to just go really, really low on health and just let it sort of hang there like they are against some of the other decks. Mizaki, 2 11s, 22, that kills them almost every time. You don't have to do this crazy full-on combo. You just have to sometimes just fire an orb at their face. So
yeah,
you need to be aware of how he manages that.
Yeah, as always, there are sort of strange circumstances, right, where if Mizaki's bottom of the deck, or near the bottom of the deck maybe, then that will give Warlock general time to actually get Giants down. But I think the normal speed of a Giant hitting the board, the Mage, generally speaking, has already achieved the main goals of the game and just needs to do the Mizaki turn, so that should be enough. But I'm excited to see it. I do want to watch more of this Mage, because I'm still in the middle between working out, is this actually a good, strong deck? Is it stronger than Quest? I know Sottle was mentioned when we were casting yesterday. Were we supposed to be playing Mizaki Mage weeks ago at this point, right? Or not? So is it good enough in that instance, or is it just a deck that's catching people off guard? I imagine most players assume no one was going to play Quest Mage, so they've not really thought about what a high burst damage Mage deck looks like in any given lineup, or whether it's just been looking its way through, because players who are bringing it have probably put a lot of time into it, right, and know the deck really well, as opposed to just picking it up and fumbling through it. Because I think the first few times I played it, even though you obviously know the basics, there are a lot of mistakes you can make, whether you're being too greedy or not greedy enough in any given matchup.
What makes me think that we should have been playing this weeks ago is when I was picking this deck up and playing it for the first time, like you, I made millions of mistakes, but I was winning anyway, without any optimization, just sort of playing the cards, see what happens, see how the deck fits together. And it was winning, and I knew how many mistakes I was making. You make a play, and then next turn you draw a card that makes you realise how stupid you were the turn before. And if you're winning anyway with lots and lots of optimizations missing out, then in the hands of the top players, that's a scary prospect. The one limiting factor, of course, is if you don't draw your Mizaki, you basically lose. I mean, give me the artistic license a little bit on that. There's definitely ways to wheedle a win. And any deck that relies on basically losing if you don't draw one card, and your draw is... There's a lot of draw, you get through your deck very fast, but it's kind of limited, because if you waste your cram sessions, it's very hard to win with a Mizaki and so on. So there is always going to be that limiting factor of bottom 5 card Mizaki is a problem. But Furyhunter knows that, and so he just draws it in his opener along with an Incanter's Flow.
Yeah, there are some things you can do, like, again, forgive me, I can't remember the name of the card, but the new Mage one where the Overkill creates a minion of that stat size. if that sticks, it's kind of like having your own giant. If that gets to hit a few times, then that can shore up some dodgy games. But yeah, you're completely right. The Incanter's Flow, the Mazaki, both of the blue cards basically in Furyhunter's opening hand, multicaster to help out as well. The only fear now, which might be lessened by that multicaster, of course, is not hitting the good card draw, right? Because although Mazaki's already there, he still has to get enough cheap cards and enough card draw to pay off the Mazaki's actual turn, right?
Yeah, this is another of those decks, though, when you know when the Warlock's going to kill you, or when they're going to try and kill you, assuming you presume there's a Battle Master in their hand. So you can push it to the last minute. You don't have to panic. You just go about your business and see if the Warlock starts to pressure you or not. And at the moment, the answer is not from XiaoT. Be interesting to see what he does about this null here.
Yeah, and if Furyhunter can get hold of any reasonable card draw soon, maybe even this is just soon enough with multicaster, this is one of those games where XiaoT could explode on turn 6 or 7, because the double Incanter's Flow one after the other are the games you get destroyed against Mazaki Mage.
Yeah, it makes it so easy to plan as the mage when you know you're not going to hit an expensive card that's going to put a sort of block in your card drawing or in your hand size. And Furyhunter's in that position already where he can plan everything ahead so far, so easily.
Yeah, so far there's been, Fire and Arcane played, I think, for Furyhunter right now?
Let's go with yes.
He's already played an Ignite, hasn't he?
That's the part I'm not sure about.
I think he's already played an Ignite. We'll see anyway. We'll find out pretty soon. But basically, my point is multicaster just drawing 2 is often just good enough in this deck, right? Because card draw normally leads to more card draw with the way this deck is built.
Yeah, that's why maybe it wasn't such a good deck in previously. It's the multicasters only put it to the tipping point, maybe.
Yeah, true. That is true.
It's just not quite, even now, got enough convenient card draw. It's got a lot, it's got enough to make the deck work, but it's not got enough for you to totally rely on going draw into draw into draw. And the multicasters, good though they are kind of a botched job at finishing off that problem.
My powers are never.
They go for Aegwin, nice. A shame it's not going to be the old Aegwin into Mazaki, which is absolutely insane.
That's ridiculous. Yeah, just giving XiaoT a problem to think about more than anything, because he doesn't know that's not going to be the case. Lots for XiaoT to worry about, pressure-wise.
I think, weirdly enough, XiaoT should just look at how can he damage himself the most this turn, right?
Yeah.
Because he can trade Raise Dead. He has the Tour Guide for the 0 mana life tap, which helps. He's got the card that's Backfire. There we go. I'm just my mind's going. He's got Backfire, but I don't really think that would fit this turn. But I think the main goal really is get these giants as cheap as possible to try and get 2 of them played in the very, very near future.
Absolutely. It's not from XiaoT's side. Mazaki hanging about isn't a problem. If Furyhunter doesn't get the win when he plays Mazaki, you've got a million ways to clear it up as the Warlock. Some decks don't have that luxury, like Hunter, for instance. Sometimes he just has to worry. But yeah, Warlock, force Furyhunter to do it in one turn, like you say. Get these giants down and force him to react to you.
And funnily enough, all those burns from the Soul Rend, none of them were the Baron Scavengers, which again is another way he could maybe set up enough damage with the help of a Battleground Battlemaster. So he's still got all of those available in the deck, which is a big deal. Obviously, still has the 2 giants that he has in hand anyway. But yeah, it looks like he's going to go Raise Dead, and we are going to see some giants hit the board very, very soon. He's got double Raise Dead if he really wants.
Looking good for XiaoT at this point. Furyhunter out of card draw as it stands. I mean, the deck is chock full of it, but it's not as reliable as you'd expect.
It has Runed Orb to go fishing for a Flurry, potentially, that would help him out a little bit. But again, another good way you can kind of pressure the Mazaki is if you keep playing minions like XiaoT is doing, it's using up resources for Fury to remove them, which means the actual Mozaki turn isn't as strong, right? Because 0 mana Hot Streak, 0 mana First Flame, the 1 mana Second Flame, these are all great cheap cards that, although aren't killing your opponent, they kind of are because they're buffing Mozaki with every spell. So if this board now requires the First, Second Flame and a Ruined Orb, well, that's a bit of a win for XiaoT, right? It's 3 less cards that Furyhunter can buff Mozaki with.
Yeah, he's also just loading up this board. That's the please give me...
Double Giant as well. Oh, now this was a turn. And I love this because although it looks like XiaoT's on like no health, he could just die, and that is true, he definitely could. Your health just doesn't matter in the matchup. Like, he's got to win and win quickly.
How can he set up a way to kill this all off? You know you're in trouble when you're got to face a board of 6 minions and you get rid of the fire sale because it's just not going to make enough of an impact.
Yeah, I think he's just trying to lethal, right? But did he need that 1 extra mana? Because now he can still ignite. He has 1 mana knocking around that he can use, maybe for this intellect. But I think he should have. Yeah, okay, so he's going for it.
Intellect into Hot Streak Ignite will do it, I think.
First Flame, okay, that's something. Brain Freeze, this is all plus spell damage. It might not be actually hitting XiaoT in the face, but the spell damage gained for Mozaki is real.
Got the Orb as well.
Yeah, is that it now if he goes Hot? Yeah, I think it is, right?
I think it is.
Ignite, once he's played all of this. So much damage.
Yep, 7 into 8 is 15, and Furyhunter gets the lethal done.
Whoa!
Whoa!
Yeah, that was a good one there. And I think, again, well played from both players. XiaoT, although he brought himself very low, well, if Furyhunter killed him, let's say exact that turn, if XiaoT is any slower, which means the Giants don't come down, for example, then, well, Furyhunter probably just kills him from 20 the turn after,
right,
or 25 the turn after that, in which a Giant's still waiting to come down. So XiaoT's never killing Furyhunter. So I think, although Furyhunter obviously got the better end of the stick there, I think XiaoT did play very well and did the setup that's required. Put a million big minions on the board and say, if you don't kill me, you are simply dead.
Yeah, and 15 felt like an okay health total, right? You know you can die there, but Furyhunter's got to have everything. And you saw it was not quite exact in the end because he did have the... I know it was exact in the end. He had no other reduction, so it was exact. We talked at the start about how the Warlock has to tread this really fine line between advancing their own play and sort of going too low on health. And we saw there, he trod that line all but 1 health perfectly, if you like. But Furyhunter getting it done. And now comes down to the OTK Demon Hunter.
Yeah, another reasonable matchup, I think, for Furyhunter. There's a very realistic chance that he just reverse kills here and takes out XiaoT in this Masters Tour. But big question for me, Lorinda, what have you made of Need for Greed right about now? I know we've had the card knocking about for a bit. Some players seem to like it. Some players seem to think it's trash. I think there's not many players that think like, oh, it's okay. It's like one or the other. Where do you land on this side?
I like it after you've started gliding and completed Kurtrus. It then becomes a card that just refills your hand and stops you from running out of gas. I don't think it's a particularly great card in your opener, or if you draw it on turn 3, you're like, oh, Need for Greed, oh, that'll do. I guess turn 3 is a bad example, but let's say turn 5, or 4 or 5, it just gets a bit clunky and messy. But later on, when all you want is cards, because Kurtrus has reduced them already, that's when it shines. I think that's why we're not playing 2 of them in a lot of these builds. It is clunky, it is awkward, but it also... We used to talk about wasting and acrobatics early being a big deal. This fills that little gap if you have to use something up early you didn't want to use.
So would Need for Greed make it in the Lorinda build of OTK Demon Hunter? If you were building the list, would you play it? And we're talking no practice, no caster work where we have to play other people's lists. But if you're just grinding ladder with this deck, would you play Need for Greed?
Yeah, I would play at least 1, and because I'm quite wasteful at my level, I'd probably play 2 just to give myself a little bit of extra going into the game. But I think 1's probably the right number for these players.
Cool. I'm excited to see more of it again because there are so many Demon Hunters that don't play it right now, it's not like we've got to see it every single time we see Demon Hunter on stream. So we'll see how it works out, but I can definitely get behind your thought pattern, right? Post Kurtrus, that card is ridiculous and can just do amazing things, but maybe a little bit clunky beforehand. But what do you make here? Demon Hunter versus Warlock. Do you think Furyhunter? Do you think the boy is just going to get it done here?
Which boy? They're both boys of the highest order.
Boy.
He is Furyhunter, let's face it, at this point. I think, honestly, I think this is almost a flip. If I had to pick, I would rather be on the side of the Demon Hunter, but if I had to pick between the players, I'd rather be on the side of whoever wins.
Nice. Good job. Just flip-flop to whoever's actually gonna be the victor. That's the way forward. We will have as well due to huge demand as always, the caster predictions will be ready for top 8 soon. So get ready for that one and get ready for... there's a few things that will definitely happen. Soto will probably do well, and Xia will probably make sure someone does not finish first place in this Masters Tour. So see how that one pans out.
Yeah, Xia's DMs are full of people saying, for goodness sake, don't pick me. Yeah. Oh my goodness, no. Please no, not this time. Pick me in the future, but not today.
Ooh. You already just kept Need for Greed, Lorinda.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I want to see... I'm ready to go on this journey with you. I want to see where this one goes. Because, again, I've not seen Need for Greed really played that often from all the Demon Hunter I've watched. So I'm excited to see what Furyhunter does with this. Meanwhile, on the top, XiaoT, bit of a bad hand, if I'm being honest. There's tap tour guide, but not really what you're looking for right about now. Definitely wants to dig to some of those more important minions.
Yeah, one of the things that you can do with the Warlock in this matchup is just go neophyte, just pace them nicely. One a turn's nice. Raise dead, neophyte, neophyte.
Yeah.
It just wins the game if you get into that pattern. But so far, no neophytes at all for XiaoT.
Okay, well the Anethron's nice though, if he can get there, if he can grab some card draw, excuse me, work his way to 10 cards. Yeah, Fury.
There you go.
Doing the thing.
Because he had the Tusk Piercer, he just kept it for the tradable so he could complete this early quest. Nothing to do with actually casting the card.
Yep.
So the journey ended pretty quickly and in a way that we probably expected, to be fair.
Yeah, makes sense. I was expecting great things and we got just decent things.
You're a hard man to disappoint, aren't you, Avon?
Or I've just accepted things just being... Nah, it's okay.
They'll do. It's fine. Right, Neophyte has
like my the name of my autobiography. Expected great things, got decent things.
Quite a good book.
Yeah.
XiaoT has got a lot of options to plan ahead for here. He's got the Anethron, he's got the Neophyte. Those two don't work particularly well in conjunction with each other, so he needs to work out when he wants to get his Null down. It's all going on here.
Where the pressure of the series kicks in and you just press Altar of Fire to try and snipe the Il'gynoth.
Yep, like, that's the way.
Go! I was winning this 2-0. It's now 2-2. Altar of Fire.
You would have sniped it.
Now he can't snipe it, at least for now, because there's no glide being played at the moment. So this Il'gynoth's going to be sitting around. Never mind. Maybe it'll change soon, next turn.
Not the worst card to have after the glide, so that you know the Il'gynoth is temporarily in their deck, unless they draw it off the glide, but that's life, right? You know it's going to sit in their hand until that point.
The tap that puts him to, what, 8? So he actually, if he wants to play a Sinethron next turn, he probably has to pass, right? Then he goes to 9 into tap Anethron.
Yeah. It's really difficult.
The problem is, or the way I would look at this is, does playing a Neophyte or a Null like make much difference to the game right now? Like the Neophyte you can always make arguments for, but is that more important than just getting an Anethron down next turn and having it in that potential raised dead pool?
It's one of the hardest things in this matchup for me is knowing, do you try and block the quest right from the start from the Demon Hunter? Do you just try and shut them down entirely? Or do you just bide your time and shut them down sort of a bit more sensibly, a bit more periodically? And he is going for the latter.
Acro, Immo, and Io, I guess, at that point. So yeah,
Moons of Saturn.
Not a bad burn set there for Furyhunter, right? Obviously, acrobatics is a bit of a shame. You don't really want your card draw being burnt. But The Immolation Aura and the I-Beam, definitely not the end of the world.
I'm just staring at XiaoT's hand and trying to work out how you plan for this. Furyhunter has glide considerations here. It's going to be quite awkward to get the glides played in a way that he wants to play them. Obviously, you want to glide the Warlock. The Warlock fills its hand up. And I think maybe that was a consideration XiaoT wasn't willing to risk going into a 4-mana turn last turn when he didn't go for the Netheron option. It's like, well, if I get glided here, the game kind of ends. I don't get my Netheron down anyway.
Pleasure doing business.
But the downside of what he's done is that Furyhunter completes the next part of the quest line.
XiaoT just doing what he can with these taps. Of course, get that level of the quest done, but again, it feels so slow after the nerf, right? Like 8 damage required for even like level 1 of the quest.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah, I've got to admit, sometimes I just forget it's there these days when I'm casting. It's like, oh, what's that? Yeah, the teardrop in the top corner there. That must mean something. Oh, yeah, there's a quest. It's a Warlock tech.
Yeah, a lot of the time it's there just so you can feel less bad about dealing damage to yourself. You're like, oh, well, yeah, the quest, right? I'm supposed to do this. Whereas really, you are just dealing damage to yourself a lot of the time.
XiaoT presenting a board, trying to slow things down a bit in terms of Furyhunter completing the final part. It's a pretty terrifying board. In fact, does it represent lethal in some worlds? It does, right?
And 16.
20, not quite. Oh, plus quest, so possibly.
Yeah, it's actually... Oh, I guess not exactly next
Just
turn.
20.
I was looking at if he could, for example, do the, like, kill your own minion. If so, then the positioning would be a little bit off right about now. You'd want the 2 small minions next to each other, right? But obviously 6 mana available next turn means that there's only going to be a Battleground Battlemaster.
Has forced Furyhunter to take evasive action, though, which is never much fun as the Demon Hunter, because obviously you want to play Kurtrus at some point. We talked about it with Rokara earlier. You do basically miss a go when you're playing those and close your eyes. And that means he's going to have to do that at a later date now because he had to deal with this board.
To be fair, though, he was doing it into a Neophyte turn, right? So it was never going to be a great turn, whichever way you sliced it. He did stick a Guild Trader, which is nothing to be upset about. Like, yes, it's likely to die, but again, on 6 mana, if XiaoT's spending mana killing a 3/4, cool. Like, it's like
Yep.
chance of anything great coming down.
Sure. I find these games are so tense when you've just got limited ways to interact with your opponent, but they're so impactful ways as well. Like the Neophyte, the fact he hasn't got any raised deads now, he's put more things in the raised dead pool with his decisions to play the Null out, etc. Large individual minions are kind of the bane of Demon Hunter to some degree because they take almost as much stuff to deal with as just a single, as a wide board a lot of the time because of how you have to use the spell damage. The removal spells, obviously I-Beam targets 1 minion, but you still end up using a Guild Trader or a Moarg or something as Fury rips a skull.
Yeah, the benefit here, though, for Fury is that is completely true what you said, but the Guild Trader's already on the board, right? Which is a big deal. It's a huge difference in having to actually play a Guild Trader or play an Arcanist or something along those lines or a Moarg. Like, the Guild Trader's already there. He's got now the Skull. I imagine if he took Skull, he's playing it this turn.
The problem is he would overdraw Kurtrus as it stands, so as much as he probably is doing that, he's got to find a way to get stuff out of his hand.
Right.
And yeah, he's loaded it into his deck, I think, here with the Glide, so that he's got a Skull. We talked about card draw after gliding being important. He's got the Skull in the deck ready to go for later.
And there's Kurt. Let's have Sigil as well next turn for Furyhunter to be able to, at least pre-stack some card draw to then have more available mana for the turn after. But it does mean he's having that kind of turn off. And as is often the case, XiaoT will play with full knowledge of it being extremely likely 5 mana's been spent on Kurtrus. And with this Moag down, it's actually very easy for him to just like double tap these 2 minions with the touch, right?
Yes, absolutely. And he needs to, because he's probably dead. He doesn't know if there's an Il'gynoth there or not, but he's dead to Il'gynoth if he doesn't start dealing with stuff. But the big problem here is he needs to absolutely immediately start threatening lethal damage, or Furyhunter is going to just play Kurtrus under no pressure, and then we know how that ends, right? You just draw loads of cards, they cost very little, and you win the turn after.
Haven't heard of me?
Yeah, XiaoT's going to go this way. He also has to look after his health total. There's some very important breakpoints, 18 being one where you can just die accidentally to the Demon Hunter. So trying to take himself a little bit above that, I would imagine.
Oh, he didn't want to kill the Moag?
That's scary.
I am afraid. Again, it's unlikely he dies, right? Because because he knows there's been the glide after the quest procs as well, and also it means that it's likely that Kurtrus is coming down. So although it is unlikely he was going to die, he could have just killed it.
But now he can
drawn a card.
kill the Kurtrus so much more easily because he left the Moag up. So that's pretty sweet, I think. I think that's the reasoning here.
Is that just the ultimate big brain play?
I think it was. I mean, it's XiaoT, right? He's got a big brain. So, yes, I think it was the ultimate big brain play, allowing himself to more easily pick off his Kurtrus next turn and back it up with a neophyte. This is the pressure of which I spake.
Inetheron down, still has more than enough removal to kill off this Kurtrus if he really wants. Potentially even going for a second neophyte, right? He's already played one. One is in the pool.
Yeah, but there's a lot in the pool, including that neophyte, which he will probably hold on to.
Now he has null trade with one of the removals and the other one for the Moag.
Yep. All a function of how he played the last turn, leaving up the Moag. Very sweet that he can do this. And
yeah, this was
his own lethal.
Sick. Yeah, this was sick. This is just maximum pressure right now. Still has the neophyte for next turn, has Battlegrounds Battlemaster in his hand as well if he needs it. He's below 10 cards, so he has options of healing with the Bristleback.
Right. Fury knows if he survives this turn, he should win the game. This Sigil is going to be card draw into next turn. He's got a lot going on here.
He also doesn't have any more Moags left, right? There's just that one in a dream right now.
Yep. And he's used a Guild Trader as well.
So
He's picked up the Immolation Aura. He's just got to work out what's the minimum amount of stuff he needs to kill here. He might not have to kill everything, just enough to not die.
Can he Immo Fell Scream Hero Power and just leave the Inetheron up? He'll take 5, but heal 3.
That'd be his second Fell Scream.
Oh, has he already played one?
I think he played one quite early on to do with the mini board. I might be wrong on that, but I think he did.
Yeah. Okay, then, yeah. I mean, if there's only one Fell Scream left, then no, that sounds like a silly idea from me. Ignore me. Oh, no.
He's left himself on 26 against 13 points of stuff.
Yeah.
And he knows this is wrong.
Did he lock in an attack phase when he shouldn't have?
He did something. He knows it's wrong. It's going to cost him. And XiaoT is going to put out the champion and progress into the top 8 here at Master Tour Undercity. Furyhunter gives a clap, very respectful of XiaoT. That wasn't a sarcastic clap. And XiaoT, very strong player. We saw a lot of him a couple of years ago, and he is back.
Yeah, really good showing there, and I think again we saw not only XiaoT went 2-0 up really quite easily from what we could see, of course, and yeah, you could say, oh well, then he looked like he was about to get reverse swept. Well, that's what happens when you've got Warlock against these 3 decks from Furyhunter. But I do think he played very, very well indeed, and I especially do like the Moag leave, so then he can deal with Kurtrus. I think that was sweet and something I will tell you right now I would not have done myself, and I would have been upset about it. So yeah, really good play there from XiaoT. Obviously, again, I'm not 100% sure. Oh, there you go.
There's the first fell scream.
Play a fell scream. So yes, he would have that would have been his last fell scream. So not exactly sure what Furyhunter was planning or what in his brain the outcome should have been with that turn, because it was tricky from his end. Obviously, it wasn't an easy turn, and he just messed it up. But still, he did clearly not end the turn how he would have liked to, and that led to the lethal, which means unfortunately Furyhunter is going to be knocked out. But it does mean XiaoT moves on, and honestly, it's one of those matchups where it's a win-win no matter what happens, right? Because both players are so good, both players are so great to watch that we seem to be okay no matter what happens. So it's going to be great to see XiaoT move forward. And we get to see who's going to be with him. Give Please beats Levick. Jackvice beats Doll Gallery as well. Tianming took down Daswap. Sloy Gruzin beat Fruit, just Fruit in general. Sherlock beat XHX, and then Sleepy Bear beats Stone as well, and then Dragon Man knocks out Zhou Zhanyu. So some big victories there for some of these players as well, like Stone taking a loss was a big one there. Zhou Zhanyu, of course, being knocked out puts that storyline to bed. Yeah, some huge wins for some of these players.
Yeah, a lot of the bigger names in this top 16 falling at the first hurdle, which in some ways is good, in some ways is bad for us, but it's great for the players who've done the beating. We're going to get to see a few new names, but Give Please once again. I still don't think, even though we've had some Grandmasters with him now, anybody really realises just how ridiculously good Give Please is overall. He just keeps doing well in everything.
He's just pretty good at the game.
Yeah, he really is. And for years, like going back to playoffs, he was one of those players, like 17th in his first playoffs. It's like, okay, that's who cares? It's 17th. What does that mean? That's not a bad introduction for a player,
right.
That sort of thing. And he's just gone from strength to strength. So that will be another terrific match when he takes on XiaoT later today.
Yeah, going to be a great one. And just a quick reminder as we check out what the quarterfinals onwards now looks like, we are going to be showing, we are going to be showing all of these matches for the rest of the day now. So there's going to be no matches off stream anymore. And I do believe, just to give you some heads up, our first top 8 match on stream will be Tianming versus Jackvice. And I imagine that is most likely to just give XiaoT a bit of a break, because we've only just finished and all the other players finished, I think, like maybe even half an hour ago at this point. So yeah, we are going to go to Tianming versus Jackvice for our first match of the quarterfinals.